Hi everyone, we're back. This is Picayune Conversations. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Calvin.
And on screen,
I'm Sarah.
All the way from, where are you in the UK?
I'm in Wales, so right on the west coast of the UK.
Wow. What are we talking about today?
I think we're talking about social media today and the impact it might have on our social interest kind of through an Adlerian lens. If that's okay with you guys, that's what I've got to talk about.
Fantastic. It's perfect.
It's such a natural fit with the stuff we already do, I feel like. Like we talk about just any kind of like connection, community, and like everything through the Adlerian lens. Like these little pockets of things that seem everyday, but like you can see lifestyle patterns in it. It's just, this is perfect.
So, and I'm even aware that there may even just be some cultural differences, and I mean that in the best possible way, between our experiences of social media. But I'm curious, maybe you could just give us a general breakdown of what you're seeing in terms of your either just your community or your culture, but then also in your work with clients. What are you seeing in terms of social media? What's sticking out to you?
Yeah, well, I guess, so my background, so I'm a counsellor, psychotherapist, an Adlerian therapist here in the UK. But before I did that, I worked on social media. I was a social media consultant for small businesses, really. So helping them to make the most of their social media presence and kind of sell to their local community mostly. And I got so disillusioned with it. And it just became quite like unsustainable with my evolving worldview, particularly as I kind of got more on board with the Adlerian stuff and was going through my training. I was just like, spending so much time on social media, like swimming in that soup, I sometimes call it, because it can feel like that sometimes. And at the moment, I think it's just so overwhelming to be on social media. I don't know if you guys find the same thing, but what used to be scrolling through pictures of your friends and like, oh, so-and-so's kids turned 5 and that's lovely and so-and-so got married. Now it's just people I don't follow, like just overwhelming, like coming at me with so many messages. I'm pregnant at the moment, and that is its whole other hellscape of advice and scare tactics. And it just, I'm just noticing for me, and around me, my friends are saying similar things, that when they come off social media, there's just this feeling of being overwhelmed and just kind of like, what just happened? It's like you're kind of coming out of this, just this soup that's difficult for us to process, I think, at the moment, increasingly. I don't know if you guys find the same things on your algorithms.
Generally, but and I think we actually did a podcast about this where I went through and very mindfully curated my, especially Instagram, I would say. I don't really look at Facebook, but just looking up like stand-up comedians and, mom stuff. And I think, I don't know, just like anything that is normalizing real life. So that way I'm less likely to jump into the comparison zone, which is really hard to do. Just stuff that lifts me up. But generally, like I deleted all my news apps other than like I subscribe to like one email that I trust, but other than that, it's just like, it's so much information on top of all our projects and our practice and the fellows program. It's hard to find a pocket of stillness, I feel like.
Yeah. I feel very similar. There are aspects of social media that I really do appreciate and value. So outside of my professional work as a counselor, I've got these side projects. Like I got a music project that I work on, and that there's a level to which like that account is great because I am like, okay, people show up on my feed that I don't know, but I'm like, oh, new musical artists. That's what the algorithm is feeding me. It's almost like a Discover Weekly on Spotify or something for me. And so there are aspects of that I think are okay. What I will say is that I notice that there's a level of work that it takes to get the algorithm to send you certain kinds of things, and that can get a little bit exhausting.
Yes.
And when I don't put in the work, then I get fed a lot of, politics or just kind of shallow entertainment kinds of things that are, good for a quick laugh, but really, like, realistically, it's just kind of rotting my brain. It's not substantive. And so I don't have a ton of, particularly discouraging things, but they are kind of a black hole. They have a gravitational pull to them where, for me, it's like I look up and I'm like, what have I been doing for the past 40 minutes? And I don't feel horrible, but I don't feel good either. And there are things that actually do make me feel great when I spend my time on them. And I'm not doing that. Chief among those things, of course, connecting with other people. So I think that kind of gravitational pull is what often sticks out to me from personal experience. And then I guess with clients too, I find that with clients, they're experiencing something very similar where I have maybe don't know quite so much about what's in their algorithm. And obviously that changes from client to client, but there is kind of this ubiquitous complaint of it just takes up so much of my time and I'm never pleased that that's how I spent my time.
Yeah.
Nobody ever seems like at the end of that, like, wow, I'm just so glad that I spent, the past 90 minutes doom scrolling. Like nobody's ever happy with that. And yet we're all doing it, which just feels kind of crazy making in and of itself, I'd say.
It's like the opposite of yoga.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Never mind. But something I was going to say.
I think what you're both describing and what I'm kind of coming to in the way that I approach social media is if we approach it with social interest, then we can use it. It can be really useful. As you say, Calvin, like you're connecting with other musicians. Like Lindsay, you've tried to craft your algorithm so it feeds you stuff that's useful and like reflects your own life. And I think we can find those crucial C's: connection, capability, value. I always forget the fourth one. And courage. If we already have that social interest and we kind of enter social media with that, but I don't think it's a place to craft social interest or that naturally leans us towards that. I think if we're not careful and if we don't put in that work, it can very easily send us down into inferiority stuff really quickly.
And something I feel like I talk about a lot with my clients is kind of catching yourself on autopilot, sort of like being in a really good movie and you find that you're like locked in and then somebody sneezes or, eats their popcorn and you get pulled back into reality and you're like, oh, right, I was in there, but in the negative way, the less socially interested way where, you notice your neck or your shoulders hurt and you realize you've been staring at your phone for 40 minutes. And I like to shift the social interest first to self and then outward. And part of that is everything feels so overwhelming and it feels out of control. That's why we feel anxiety, because it's a lack of control. And just pausing and stopping for a moment when you catch yourself just on autopilot, it is a form of self-respect. It is a form of all kinds of things, but namely, it's like control. It's a little moment of control. No matter what you do with it, you get to choose whatever you do next.
And I'm just aware that, we're of course using this term rather freely we're talking about social interest. I'm aware that some of our listeners or people, watching this may not know what the hell we're talking about. And so, Sarah, can you just talk to us a little bit about when you're talking about coming to social media with social interest, can you unpack a little bit more of what you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce the German word that Adler used, that it's a translation of. If one of you want to give it a go, then go for it.
Gemeinschaftsgefühl.
There you go. Thank you, Calvin.
Yeah.
And so that can translate to social interest or kind of community feeling. But I think, Calvin, I've heard you use the term interested in the interests of others. And I don't know if that comes from somewhere else or if that's your term, but that's
a West Winget thing, I think, maybe, yeah.
And he said it was from Drykers.
Yeah, so well, whatever. I mean, it's all like you can go up the family tree, all the way to Adam,
Yeah, so an interest in the interests of others. So coming at it from this idea where a rising tide floats all boats is a metaphor that I really like for social interest. So rather than being preoccupied with ourselves and what makes us feel good and feel better and our own flaws and how to compensate for that, which we can get so mixed up in, it's about approaching the world with a more open mind and kind of, having that feeling that you're part of something bigger and the responsibility that comes with that, the belonging that comes with that. I think if we approach any space with that, then we can engage with it more fully. And on social media, I think that's even more important because we're stepping into, every time we open Instagram, we're stepping into a worldwide community. And I think if we can view it like that, then we're probably on the right track to engaging with it in a useful way.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
So when you look at the online world through the Adlerian lens and like Adler's ideas like belongingness, private logic, lifestyle, all those things, what kinds of patterns do you see showing up, at least on your end?
Yeah, I think because I kind of come to social media with a bit of business knowledge and in terms of how businesses use it, and back in the good old days where you could kind of put a $5 behind a Facebook ad and it got shown to everyone in your village, that was like amazing and it made my job so easy. And then that slowly got more and more expensive and less straightforward. So I'm just quite aware that our algorithms actually aren't there to entertain us or to make us feel good. They are there to sell us stuff at the end of the day. And so who buys more stuff? People who feel perfectly fine with their lives, good about who they are, connected to the people around them, or people who feel a little bit crap about themselves and aren't feeling good enough. And the algorithm knows how to kind of make that happen. And it kind of, when I talk about this stuff, I know I can slide into conspiracy theory talk a little bit. And it's not that. I'm not there. I don't think there's like people really pulling the strings of this. It's just how the algorithms are set up. And now with AI, they're going to get cleverer and cleverer. And it's like, I think about kind of an anti-aging cream. Like, who is going to buy an anti-aging cream? Probably someone who's just watched 10 videos of either perfect women or women being torn apart for their flaws, rather than 10 videos of your friends having a really good time. So I just think it's that. And so if we think about like our slippery pole, which from feelings of inferiority to feelings of superiority, I just think the algorithm is designed to send us down to that inferiority so that we're trying to clamber back up in whatever way that might present itself. They hope that it's buying things, but it could look like shouting at someone in a comment section or editing your own selfie so that it looks perfect, or however might boost you out of that feeling of inferiority. I think it can sort of push us towards that behavior, that lifestyle stuff.
Yeah. That, I think you're giving us also just some really practical examples of the kinds of unhealthy patterns that can get stirred up. And it is striking that it doesn't really even have to be particularly insidious for it to do a lot of damage and get us very focused just on ourselves as opposed to focused on the health of a community. So then, I'm worrying about the wrinkles on my face or something, as opposed to like when really the wrinkles on my face, I'm not going to begrudge somebody for caring about the wrinkles on their face. But I think one thing we can say for certain, and that is that the wrinkles on my face do not pose a threat to the health of the world community.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
fingers crossed.
like they just don't. And again, that's not to say, neither does my preference for Dr. Pepper over Coca-Cola. Like, that's not, but that doesn't mean that I can't have that preference, right? Like that's okay. But if my preference for Dr. Pepper over Coca-Cola gets in the way of me having an adequate level of concern for community health, and I'm willing to sacrifice community health in order to ensure that I get my damn Dr. Pepper and I don't ever have to drink Coke, well, now we're like, and I think that this is part of what is happening with social media, where it's like I get kind of sucked into that black hole of, that gravitational pull on my attention, and I'm, scrolling through reels or whatever. Well, it's not that in and of itself is so horrendously awful. But if we zoom out a little bit, it's like, what I'm not doing when I'm watching all those videos is playing with my kids. Mm-hmm. And now we've got a real problem, because I do think and it's not some like catastrophic threat or something, but there is a threat, actually, not in my wrinkles or in my, soda preference, but there is actually a threat to the well-being of a community if what we have is a culture in which parents are not playing with their children. Mm-hmm. Like that is an actual, very real, very substantive threat to the health of not only to my children, which obviously, they would bear the brunt of that, but also those two kids who wanted to play with their dad and instead spent an hour watching him scroll through his phone, they go to school. And that affects maybe their feelings of inferiority that then they manage however they manage them, and maybe they don't manage them in the best way with the other kids around them. And so then there's this kind of, what's the word for it? This like ripple effect that passes out through a community, whereas like really nothing's going to happen if I have to, if I don't get my Dr. Pepper or I have wrinkles on my face. And I think that's sometimes what gets lost in this is we get so obsessed over like, oh, well, I'm dopamine addicted and I'm whatever. And it's still all focused. That's still like all focused on me. Mm-hmm. When I'm kind of like, what does it matter if you're dopamine addicted? Mm-hmm. Like that's actually that's the question that we should be asking. Who cares if I'm dopamine addicted? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't care, but there are like substantive answers to that go far beyond me and my body and my brain and my little synapses that are full of certain chemicals and not full of others. There's social realities to that I feel like even gets ignored in the kind of anti-social media sphere, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. And we're talking as people who grew up without social media. Like my first social media account was MySpace, and I was still a teenager, but I didn't have a phone in my hand that I could access all hours of the day and scroll pretty much endlessly through things. I had to ask my dad to use his computer, and I got to sit for as long as he would let me use it, and there were family walking in and out of the room. Like it was such a different experience. And so we've also got kids and teens growing up with this. And I'm, again, a bit like the conspiracy theory stuff. I don't want to sit here and be like, think of the children, like it's all going to pot. Because I trust our kids. I think like they're smarter than we give them credit for a lot of the time. And I'm seeing some teens in my life not really want a phone, or kind of going back to more analog kind of technology. And I'm kind of hoping that we go a bit more that way. But I do think if we're talking about needing to foster social interest away from the online world, there are some kids growing up not able to do that because they're so enmeshed with it. And so there's that as well, that if we're struggling as adults who kind of developed a personality without it, like, yeah, being a teenager now is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I do not envy them. I tell my teenagers that I see all the time, where I'm just like, tell me what's the hardest thing about it. Like I just really want to understand. And I feel like when they're discouraged, social media just becomes this measuring stick kind of thing, instead of what it could be used for is like a meeting place for community and lifting each other up. Being a cheerleader. That's what I like to do. I like to just like go on and post and be like, you're a badass, I love you. But I feel like social media, especially for the younger ones, it's like 1,000 mirrors, like showing us whether we belong or not. And I don't know how I feel about it. Also, I want to get your thoughts on this. I kind of feel like online life or social media, whatever you use, it's sort of like our lifestyle, but like in public and magnified. And I don't know what your lifestyle definition is, but the working one that we're going with, well, we have two. We have a long one because neurospice, and then we have a shorter one that Calvin came up with. But generally, we kind of explain it like lifestyle is the patterned way that you perceive and manage the challenges of life. So when you meet a challenge, what historically have you done and what are you doing? Because likely however you did it back then when you were a wee child is probably how you're still doing it. Or the shortened one is, you want to say it?
A goal, and not just like I want to lose 5 pounds, but like a goal around which you make all your life decisions based on this goal. But it's a goal plus a strategy, a pattern strategy for reaching that goal. And it does seem to be the case that that fleshes itself out on social media of like, if you feel like what life means is, well, you need to be smarter than other people, and the way that you accomplish that is that you put other people down for being stupid. Well, guess what you're going to end up doing? You're going to end up in comment sections lecturing people about how stupid they are and scoring cheap points in flame wars. Like, I mean, that's how it's going to show up. Or, you say, well, I want to be smart, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn and, just devour infinite amounts of information. I'm going to learn everything. Well, that's going to be reflected in what the algorithm feeds you and how you interact with those things. And we could go down the list. We could go through, every imaginable goal and probably imagine also what that would look like on an Instagram account, or like, what the algorithm's going to feed a person with this goal and with this strategy, which is pretty interesting to consider. That I think sometimes we think about people as like, oh, well, you have your online life and then you have your like IRL existence or something. And from an Adlerian perspective, with us having this idea of holism, I reject that notion. And I'm aware, I don't reject the notion that those two things can look really different. But are you familiar with this Adlerian idea? Rob Guttenberg taught us about this of 2 points on a line.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of this?
No, not in that wording.
I would.
No, you're going to
Okay.
learn. You describe it so succinctly.
So it's such a cool idea. So Rob got this from Adler, but the idea is that you have these 2 points of information that when you look at them, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. How could both of those things be true? But that's actually, from a therapeutic standpoint, that is a gold mine. Because now you have these two things that don't seem to fit, but our underlying assumption is that there is something unifying these two bits of seemingly contradictory information. And so if you find that thing, you find a very deep truth about somebody. Mm-hmm. And so there is something to be said about when people have this online existence that is very, very different, or seemingly very different from how they're presenting in everyday life, whatever we mean by that. That we have 2 points on a line. Mm-hmm. There's something that would bind those things together and make them sense, and that, whatever that is, would really be a very deep, deep truth about somebody, as opposed to just a surface level observation about their behavior.
Like an Instagram post.
I love that, actually. I love how you've related that to the online world and the real world almost being those 2 points that can look really different.
Yeah. And
I think your question, Lindsay, about what was your question? You had a question earlier that was how lifestyle is showing up, or how
you mentioned in your email that you gave a talk on lifestyle in the online world, and I don't even know if I actually asked you a question. I do this thing in session where I like stack questions and then they don't know which one. I'm like, I'm sorry, just let me just start with the one. I don't remember what it was.
I think it was, the way that I received it was something about how lifestyle might show up on social media. And then Calvin, you gave an example of someone who's maybe got some superiority stuff going on, needs to be smarter than other people, and they might shout in a comment section.
And how it shows up for you. Like, I noticed that I feel like we all have an imagined audience, and I feel like Adler would go bananas for who our imagined audience. Like, we post for someone or someone's. Like, it's like we're trying to negotiate our place in the world with, via posts and likes and all those things. And I know I do that. And my lifestyle shows up when I notice what I avoid. I triple check my grammar because I don't want to look stupid, which goes with my mistaken lifestyle. So I'm just curious how it shows. What do you see?
I see, particularly in clients, which reflects my own experience. So I seem to attract a lot of women in their late 20s, early 30s as clients who have perfectionist stuff, perhaps quite high control, but control over themselves and the way that they're perceived. Like, that's often what I see, which, shocker, is probably because that's what I'm attracting, because that's what I'm putting out into the world. That is me. Like, I've got, kind of my lifestyle. There's a lot of stuff around being careful, and it's often being careful around how much of yourself you put out there, how much of your flaws you put out there, because people might take advantage of them. So what that can look like for me on social media, it has been a lot of perfectionist stuff, like a real highlight reel of my life. And what I've tried to do on my personal account is be a bit more real, kind of turn up with, I lost my mum when I was quite young, and I've posted about grief and how grief is quite messy, and actually you're not always gonna say the right thing, or so that has been a way that I've challenged my own lifestyle online, I think, is by showing up for the people close to me. I wouldn't do it publicly because I don't need to kind of put that. I don't need to put that out in the world. But just kind of showing up, not just with the filtered selfie of me and my husband having a lavish meal and that being like, oh, look at our life, which I think so many people can fall into, but also look at me on a run at 6 a.m. And when you post that, if I see that on someone's story, I think, oh my God, that person goes for runs at 6 a.m. Whereas actually, I have posted that, and it's probably the only run I've been for at 6 a.m. for 10 years. But it made it onto Instagram, so that is who I am. To someone out there, they think I get up at 6 a.m., go for a run, and have a green smoothie. Yeah. It's never happened again. So I think it's that. I think you can sort of polish yourself to such an extent. And if you've got some perfectionist stuff, if you've got some high control stuff, social media is perfect for that. Because as you say, Lindsay, you can reread what you're putting out there 1,000 times if you want to. Mm-hmm. Now you can put it through ChatGPT and say, could you make this sound even better? Could you make me sound smarter? Mm-hmm. Is the grammar okay? Which in a conversation you can't do. You've got to say what you're going to say and then panic about it afterwards.
Exactly. I don't feel like you're giving your business or professional account enough credit. Like, you're super vulnerable and not in like an inappropriate way, but like you share mistakes and just like you normalize a lot of things. So I'm just thinking how that is more Gemeinschaft, if you will, on social media. And that's how people have found you. They found something in what you've been saying. It connected, it resonated, and then they have enough courage to like reach out. I think it's great.
Thank you for pointing that out. And I think something that I've been through with my professional account, that Adler therapist on Instagram, little plug, is that when I first started, it would take me so long because I would film a video, watch it back and be like, oh, I pronounced that wrong, or I did that wrong, I'm going to have to do it again. And it would take me like 4 hours to film and edit a video that was like 20 seconds long. And I was like, I can't, this is unsustainable. Like, I can't do this. So now I'm pretty much a one take person. And I'm like, do you know what? That's the take. And I recently did a series on birth order. And in my last one, I said eldest when I meant only child. And I only realised when I was editing it, and by that point I was in my pyjamas with no makeup on. I could not read. I couldn't film it. And it was a real moment where I was just like, oh my God, like I can't put that out. Like, that's ridiculous. And in the end, I just put the text over it saying only, and then like a face palm. Because, people make mistakes. And as you say, Lindsay, it's like, it's social interest to show up with those mistakes because it just shows people that you're human.
Yeah, because I feel like social media it's a very curated counterfeit connection, and it's stuff like that where, because you can't truly belong unless you show up with vulnerability and as yourself, and you help people do that. You help me do that. Like, I literally listened to that one again this morning on the way to work, and I heard it, but because I know you know your stuff, it didn't even cross my mind. If anything, I was like, she left that in there. Oh my God, like, courageous. Like, that's really cool. And then I saw that you had, like, written over it or whatever. But I just think it's really cool. And we are running out of time, I think. So no, you.
Yeah.
Say
Well, I was just going to say that just to circle back to what you're talking about, coming to social media with social interest. I think what you're also doing there, right, is that you are attending to the needs of the community instead of to the needs of your private logic, like your individual need to. I mean, and I'm certainly not saying this critically because I got my own little neuroses, that I'm
Little.
trying, or not so little neuroses that I'm trying to like work those out in my online behavior. Like I have this real thing where I want so desperately to be listened to. I want so desperately to be listened to. And so then I find myself doing these things which are, I think, really understandable. It's not I'm not even saying this to be judgmental to myself or anything like that, but just it's very understandable. But it's like, it's really just me trying to like solve some inner problem that I have rather than considering what is it that people need? What's a contribution that I can make? And honestly, the contributions, it's not, by the way, it's not nothing. It's not just like sit down and shut up and that's what the community needs from you. No, like, okay, the community needs my voice or it needs my music or it needs my insight about, X, Y, and Z. But the community doesn't need me to be perfect.
No.
It's never needed that. And so when I run around trying to manufacture, this like perfect solution or something, well, then I'm just focused back on my private logic rather than the ironclad logic of social living, that social interested piece.
Yeah,
So.
I like to remind myself before I post anything, am I moving towards people or away from people? Am I like playing a game to like win likes, or is this really Gemeinschaftsgefühl?
Yeah.
Now,
I think there's that, like you can, particularly on my professional account, I've got into like chasing reach or chasing views and going like, oh, that one did really well. Like, what was it about that one that did well? I need to recreate that. And if I'm not careful, I can just add to the noise of these like little reels, and there's a place for them, right?
okay, so great that we were just having a conversation about putting out imperfections on social media, because here we go, we're putting out an imperfection. We ran out of time on our little free Zoom meeting because I'm cheap.
You are.
I'm really cheap. And so we were like in Zoom jail for 9 minutes or something until we could start another meeting. So now we're back.
We are back.
Can you remember what we were talking about? Because I don't think we can.
I can, because my perfectionist self wrote it down. I must remember what I was talking about. That was chasing views, that I noticed that I was kind of chasing what would be viewed most widely rather than what was maybe most useful to the people who were following me. And if I'm not careful, I can really go down the route of adding to the noise of these little 6-second clips with text over them, which can be useful. You can get a message across with them. But I found myself going, oh, maybe I could just ask ChatGPT for like loads of ideas for like one-liner Adlerian content, and then I could just be churning those out, and then I'd get loads of followers. And I was like, is that how I want to use this platform? Like, is that what I want to be adding? Because, on my therapy Instagram, the algorithm's friendlier, it's all therapists, but that is noisy. Like, that is, if you're scrolling through that as a client looking for a therapist, that's like a lot of advice coming at you, a lot of like quite complex ideas sometimes being shortened down into 6-second clips. And so that's why I was like, do you know what? I'm going to do a birth order series that's like 5 3-minute videos. Instagram hated it. They got like 500 views each, which is like for Instagram not very much at all. But the people who did watch it really got something from it and were messaging me saying, where can I find out more about this? And are there any books that you would recommend? And all of that. And I was like, do you know what? This is what I want to be doing. Like, I can do really useful stuff that isn't going to propel me to 100,000 followers. Do I really want that anyway? But it took me a while. I had to really check in with myself that I kind of automatically went, yeah, I want to be Instagram famous. Like, because of course, that's what everyone wants. And then I was like, is that what I want? Because if anyone says anything mean to me on Instagram, I cry for like a week. So is that what I want? Do I want to?
Yeah, give yourself more credit. You cried for a week, but then you came back. I'm thinking about
did.
a post you did that got misinterpreted because people didn't really look at it and listen. They just assumed that your post on trauma was something that it wasn't. And then you took a break for yourself, respectful, and then you came back.
And it wasn't actually the one on trauma. I got away with the one on trauma.
Oh.
It was the one about I wouldn't say to a client that I'm proud of you.
Oh, yeah.
Therapists hated that. Like, I got it bad, and comments are still turned off on that video because I couldn't take it. So I'm not cut out for that. So I'll stick out around my nice little following that I've got at the moment, which is fine. But if anyone does want to follow me, I wouldn't say no.
Speaking of, where can people find you and your work and your stuff?
Mostly on Instagram. So I'm at that Adlerian therapist on Instagram. And I do have a Substack, which has a grand total of 1 article on there at the moment. But it's about AI. So I guess it's like fairly on topic. And I'm planning to write another one kind of about what we've been talking about today. So my intention for it is like an Adlerian take on modern world, like challenges that we're all facing at the moment. So people can subscribe there. I guess you subscribe to Substack. I haven't used it enough to know. But yeah.
Well, we will link that.
Absolutely, we will, in large part because we want to, we think that the community, and I mean like the global community, we think that it needs your voice and your thoughts and your disposition to the world too. Every time that we interact with you, we're always really glad that we do. And we always get a little excited thinking about how you're helping people and what it is that you're putting out into the world. It's a lot of really good stuff. So,
and we are proud of you.
I'll take it. We did for a while. After that, my husband was like, am I allowed to say that I'm proud of you? And I was like, I don't know anymore. Like, I don't question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for saying that. And I'm so pleased to have done this and like be able to have this chat with you guys, and that technology has allowed us to do it across the pond, which, it has major benefits. So I don't want to sit here and kind of sound like I'm just slagging it off and saying we all need to come off it. I think if we approach it in the right way and kind of foster social interest outside of it, then it can be a great thing.
Yeah.
And we're not going to say what yet, but you and I are going to be doing a little collab together on
We are.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
More about this. That's very exciting.
We'll do.
More to come. Watch this stay.
In our 5 followers,
Fab.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and for all of our listeners, we will be back at some point with more conversation. So yeah, everybody go follow Sarah on social media and Substack and whatever else. So
bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.